This Steve Jones Show podcast is now loading. The Steve Jones Show podcast is presented by Sunbury Motor Company, Purdy Insurance, and bringing you an in-depth look at Penn State sports and more. This is the Steve Jones Show on News Radio 1070 WKOK. The Steve Jones Show is presented by Purdy Insurance, Brewers Outlet, and Sunbury Motor Company. Now from the Sunbury Motor Studio, here's Steve Jones.
Half hour brought to you by Brewers Outlet, Reagan Street in Sunbury, the beverage supermarket, imports, domestics, microbrews, the best selection of beer anywhere. Wine coolers, water, soft drinks, snacks. They roast their peanuts fresh and on every day. 6 great flavors of slushies. And ready-to-drink cocktails. High Noon Jack Daniel's Crown Royal. Pickle Bar led by the Barrels of the Dills. Indeed, second to none. All at Brewers Outlet, Reagan Street in Sunbury, the beverage supermarket. One of the privileges of the show for me every week is to make sure that we talk with Neal Coolong. Makes my week going. And, Neal, I appreciate you very much. Thanks for being with us.
Absolutely. As always, it's my pleasure to be here.
Before I get to the Steelers, the Eagles have now been offside 3 times on the push play, which was not called, despite the fact that they're looking at it closer. Yeah. Right. Not looking close enough, evidently. New Orleans got called for being offside. It's like I'm so mad at Kentucky, we put Wichita State on probation. The NFL, just so the NFL says, well, the league has spoken on this matter. No, they didn't. The vote was 22-10 to ban it. They needed 24 votes. So more than 70% of the teams don't want it. All right, so don't word game me into making the world think it's approved. It's not. What's your thought on it?
I am so glad you said that. I thought I was the only person that was really kind of put off by that. That's a huge PR mistake. You can't say, well, they've spoken. Not when a large majority of the league said they didn't want it. That's what they spoke on. Your rules said that's not enough, and that's another argument for another day. But I think what we're seeing now, and this came up, I think, really because of the Chiefs game. I don't know how often I saw false start on that play prior to the Chiefs game, but the one they got against the Chiefs was ridiculous. I mean, there's no way you don't see that. To act as if the official whose job is to stand parallel with the line of scrimmage and look straight down the line did not see that because there's just too many bodies there. That's not an excuse to me. We don't want to call this for whatever reason. Now, I'm not against the play. I don't have a problem with the play. Okay. I don't think there's an issue with it strategically. If a team wants to dedicate the time and to put the hits on their quarterback that way, let alone their offensive lineman, go for it. We've talked about this. I've seen several teams try to do what the Eagles do, and they failed miserably. That's right. Why they don't do it. It's an advantage that is unique to Philadelphia, largely because their quarterback is insanely strong in his lower body. And with that, he has enough experience running that play, as do the offensive linemen now, that they're successful with it. It's not why they win championships. They can, if they have a strategic advantage that works for them, go for it. There's nothing against the rules about it. That obviously is the central argument. Should we make a rule to ban this play? I think that's nonsense. I don't see why you'd bother with it. But if what I'm going to hear from the officials is we can't see whether they are moving prior to the snap, that's a different conversation. And it's one that really shouldn't be held exclusively to this one play. You should be looking at all of it because, the thing that I would bring up is the fact that offensive tackles are lining up 2 yards off the line of scrimmage. But if an offensive lineman is 2 yards and a centimeter downfield, they get flagged. It's obvious that they're choosing to call some things and not choosing to call other things. Right. I would like more clarification on that. For me personally, I would like to see the media, whoever the designated pool reporter is, actually ask a difficult question instead of having the official state what the rule is on the record each time it comes up. Did you really not see the guy move? Have you looked at the replay? Did you notice that he moved? Do you usually call false start when you see it? These kinds of things hold officials more accountable. They're going to see that if they have to answer to it. Right now, they're not made to answer to it. And I'm not talking about retribution. I just mean get it in your head that you have seen this multiple times now. The guard, I think it's the guard, or maybe it's the tackle. The guard on the play is jumping clearly before the ball is moving.
Right.
They know the snap count. They try to time it. But if they're off on that, that's clearly an unfair advantage. That's something that needs to be regulated. I don't think the play needs to be regulated. I think they need to officiate it like it's a normal play. I don't see why that's getting overlooked. And it happened again. But to your point, you see the Saints do it, you're all over it. Why is that? That doesn't make any sense. And I'm not trying to say there's any favoritism or anything like that. It's just you're on the line, you're looking at the play. All Sean Payton did last week was ask you to call false start when there's false start. That's really all he did. They still didn't do it. So I don't know what the complication is with that, but I think that is what the PR arm of the NFL should try to address this week or next week.
Here's the part that I'm against, and see you follow me on this. You're allowed to push now all over the field. My issue is in the open field. Runners going along, we saw it in the Baltimore game last night, that a lineman will come over and throw his body into the back of the runner to push him across. See, I find that part in the open field to be a dangerous play.
I would agree with that. The size of the lineman with the momentum coming down to the ball carrier, I would think the offense would instruct their players not to do that. It does come up. You can see it. They'll shove a guy. They'll push him forward. They'll kind of hit into the small of his back in an effort to drive him forward. But yeah, there's some danger to that. You can see why they do it. There's a pile up. The adrenaline gets going. You don't want your guy standing there, and you certainly don't want him to get slammed backwards. So I see why they would do it at that level, but it's not. There's much more of a danger concern, like you said, just considering momentum, the amount of movement that comes with that. I wouldn't think they would want to do that particularly often. They would probably say, all right, let's not kill our own guy here. Let's just try to at least brace and try to make sure that he's not going to get driven back into the ground. But strategically, I don't think the situation comes up often enough that it can be something they ought to regulate at that level. I think that's something teams need to take care of on their own for themselves, because to be honest with you, what I would rather have is officials watching the ball. You get more of that confusion and ultimately post-game frustration from fans when there's a fumble that pops out and you can't, you're not necessarily sure when the whistle blows right away. So the officials have to call it a fumble because that makes it reviewable. Then they're reviewing it, and then they'll make the call themselves. You need to be able to make the call in live action, in my opinion. I've always had that stance. Instant replay is a benefit, and it can help things, but it can't be the sole arbiter of decision-making, which is what we have seen in the past. I think the NFL has done a better job of making a clear call on the field and allowing replay to justify or overturn that call upon a legitimate review. In cases now, an expedited review. That's my new favorite phrase. That would be the name of my fantasy football team if I had one. It just, I'm glad it took you this long to figure out how to do this quickly. It works better this way. It's fine. All is good, but the officials are paid on the field to make the call. I'm not going to get after them if they make, in their best judgment from their viewpoint, a realistic call for what happened, and they're overturned later, because there are some things that you're not going to be able to see in real time as clearly as a replay angle would. If that's what happens, that's fine, but you need to make the call on the field, because sometimes things just need to be done ahead of time so you have the right frame of reference going into a review that might overturn it.
Okay, so let's get to the Steelers before we get to the Dublin part. Look, they won the game, and they're the team in first place in the North after 3 games. I don't know what that says, but what was your thought on how they played and why were they better defensively?
It's funny what you get into against teams that commit 5 turnovers the way the Patriots did is sometimes it's kind of trying to determine what is more factual. Are these turnovers or are these takeaways? These weren't most of them were not aggressive takeaways. I really don't know what's wrong with Ramondre Stevenson, but he really just doesn't hold on to the ball. Cole Holcomb did not hit him very hard. Cole Holcomb is probably smaller than Stevenson is. He's reaching around the wide part of his body to get to the ball, and he really just kind of slapped at it. He didn't hit it, and all of a sudden it popped out. I don't know if his gloves create static electricity or what, but he held the way the ball slipped out of his hands, it looked like it was 20 below out. Just an odd fumble. And the one at the goal line, a great play by Cam Hayward, but that to me didn't really look like it was a big hit on the ball either. That's not to take anything away from Steelers players that actively aim, and all defensive players do, actively aim to try to knock the ball loose. They did their job, and that's good, but it didn't seem like these were forced plays as much. But do they count that way on the scoreboard? Absolutely not. The Steelers got outplayed badly in the second half. They got beat up pretty consistently on both sides of the ball, in my opinion, over the second half of that game. And they were able to escape with a win largely because New England is a step lower than Pittsburgh is right now. They're kind of lost. I was going into this game assuming Mike Vrabel, fundamental, disciplined coach, all these things. I didn't see that at all from his team. I think they beat themselves far more than Pittsburgh won the game. But Pittsburgh will take it because I was, half the age I am now the last time the Steelers won in Foxborough. They'll take a win in that place any chance they can get. It's just very uncharacteristic for any Patriots team, maybe even any NFL team, to make as many critical mistakes as they did, up to and including the final play of the game. So Pittsburgh defensively, I think they did good things. I don't want to take a whole lot away from them, but there's still a long way to go. And I understand the consternation from fans that teams go on these drives. They're kind of marching down the field. That's sort of the NFL today. It's a completions league. It's hard to cover absolutely everything. It doesn't mean that Pittsburgh can't get a lot better. But the big thing, Steve, that I see with Pittsburgh is they're fundamentally sound. I think by and large there are issues that are going to get ironed out.
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, and maybe this is due to injury, they have no playmakers on the field. There are nobody really in the back seven is dropping into coverage and making plays on the ball in the air. It's not to say that they're not going to get interceptions or anything like that, but they're not able to beat out a receiver in coverage alone. And I think that's the problem. They're waiting. They're covering down the field. It's not that they're not trying to or anything like that, but they don't have the burst to get to an out route. They don't have the burst to cover a guy deep down the field. And if their pass rush isn't there, they're going to get beat deep. And I would imagine with the return of Jordan Addison and the ever-presence of Justin Jefferson with Minnesota, you're going to see those deep balls a bit more aggressively in this game than perhaps the Steelers have faced to this point. They're going to challenge them because I think they have a pretty sizable advantage with their receivers compared to Pittsburgh's defensive backs if Pittsburgh insists on playing man every single snap the way they have. Defensively, I think this is going to be a letdown game in that regard because I think Minnesota can hit on a few big plays, which is something that New England didn't have to do. They kind of marched down the field the long way, and eventually they made mistakes. If Minnesota can hit a ball over the top pretty quickly into that game, you're going to see the whole focus of the defense shift, and they're going to be able to move up and down pretty easily. It's a real tough assignment for the Steelers defense in this game.
I did a game in Dublin in 2014, and when I was there at that time, Dan Rooney was the ambassador to Ireland. What Jack Ham and I discovered when we were over there, Neal, is that country has a lot of Steelers fans in it. So it's going to feel like a home game Sunday morning in Dublin, because, I mean, they're beloved there. What do they need to do on the field against a Vikings team, which to me is hard to read now that Carson Wentz is quarterbacking them?
Yeah, it really is a difficult matchup to preview, I think. One that it's early in the season, and you have key injuries on both sides, really. The Vikings more so than the Steelers at this point. But you're getting Jordan Addison back. His 3-game suspension is up. He's going to be somebody they're going to work in, I would imagine, pretty early. I don't even necessarily know if Wentz snap for snap is a better or worse option than J.J. McCarthy would be. Right. And I say that McCarthy's young. He has not played a whole lot, obviously. He's made some mistakes on the field. I've watched every snap he's taken. There's a lot to like about him. There's a lot that I'm sure he wishes he had back. But the thing with him is you're going to see the film improve as the season goes on. That's not unexpected. Not having to face him and to get a veteran with the kinds of offensive weapons that they have, the structure that they have, now that they've figured out their pass protection a little bit. The return of Christian Darrisaw last week against Cincinnati was a massive improvement in that unit compared to where they were the first 2 games. It's going to be a very difficult time, in my opinion. Carson Wentz is not going to have to do as much to find success in this game against the Steelers' defense the way I think Aaron Rodgers is going to have to. And Aaron Rodgers, in my opinion, has played pretty well to this point for what you could ask him to do. The Steelers, though, have a complete dearth of playmaking skill position guys on offense. Every one of their receivers has let them down multiple times to this point. Right. Their protection is kind of waxed and waned. I definitely think we saw some good things this past week, though I'm not sure how great New England's pass rush can really be considered versus everybody else. And Minnesota's is going to be considerably better in every phase of defensive football. They're better than the Patriots are. It's a big challenge for the Steelers' offense, and that's more what I'm looking at. So Wentz, in that regard, I think if I'm the Vikings, I'd probably try to dial up a big play, a look somewhere, see if Wentz will kind of go for it, but trying to push the Steelers' beleaguered safeties back, and I'm assuming now on Tuesday, Deshaun Elliott may or may not be able to play. Let's say that he's not. If you still have the guys the Steelers are putting out there in their deep secondary, I would attack that pretty consistently. You can get up big on this team and just grind them down from there and get ready for a much better defensive team the next week. The Vikings will stay in the United Kingdom and take on Cleveland after this game. But Pittsburgh was flat as you could possibly be offensively the second half of that game after a great start. You're not playing the level of defense that the Vikings have, and I'm not sure the Steelers are going to have answers this week to continue to move the ball, to possess the ball, try to make some plays and put some points on the board. Like I said, they were great on script. Everything looked really good, and it completely fell apart after that. The rest of the game was very flat for them. And now you're going overseas in a different area, a different environment. You've got a lot of PR stuff that you got to do. I don't know if this is a great week for them to get back on track. So to be honest, I don't like this for the Steelers very much. I think Minnesota has a little bit more going for it, but it's early in the season, and there's a lot of moving parts that on both sides that are coming and going. And with that, I think you might look at it as a toss-up, but I think the Vikings will win this one.
Very interesting. All right. My friend, always a pleasure. Appreciate it very much.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me, guys.
And this half hour brought to you by Brewers Outlet, Reagan Street in Sunbury, the beverage supermarket, on News Radio 1070 WKOK.
Party time, game time, or just fun time. Doesn't matter what time it is because it's Brewers Outlet time. The beverage supermarket has the area's largest beer selection. Imports, microbrews, ciders, and domestics. Pick from over 100 ice-cold 12-packs and dozens of 24-ounce singles. Soda, snacks, hot sauces, fresh roasted peanuts. Make it one-stop party shopping, and don't forget the pickle bar. So whatever you're celebrating or just doing it up, Brewers Outlet, Reagan Street, Sunbury wants to see you. And thank you for your years of patronage.
Fall in Central PA means hunting season, football games, and tailgates. Make sure you're rolling up in a brand new Ford from Sunbury Motors Ford. Over 30 2025 Ford Explorers are ready to roll with discounts up to $6,200, starting at just $38,530. 16 2025 Ford Escapes are here with prices slashed up to $9,000 off. Priced from only $26,770. That is Sunbury Motors Ford's lowest price ever. And for truck season, over 70 Ford F-150 F-Series trucks in stock with discounts up to $10,416. That's right, a brand new F-150 for under $45,000. Load up for the big game, gear up for hunting season, or just hit the road this fall in the Ford you've been waiting for. Sunbury Motors Ford, the North Forest Street Auto Plaza in Sunbury and at sunburymotors.com. Run by the Mertz family for 110 years.